Some 4 years ago, I gave a sermon where I talked about a trend that I had been noticing, and one that in reality is probably far older than when I had just been noticing. And I spoke about the inclination of Jews when they see or learn about another Jew doing something that they disagree with politically, culturally, whatever it might be, to strip that person of their Judaism. Bernie Sanders criticizes Israel. He's not a real Jew. It doesn't matter. Haredim and Mea Sharim protest mandatory military service. Oof, busha, but they're not real Jews. They're extremists. That was the theme of that morning, about how self-defeating, how detrimental it is to us as Jews to have this infighting begadol, right, in general, but more specifically to allow our infighting to get so personal and so malicious that we go as far as to take away someone's Judaism. This morning is the remix of that sermon, but don't worry, it's also casual Shabbat, and there's a lot of simchas, so I'm not going to get too serious. I'll try not to. But this morning, I think, is a perfect opportunity to add on to that message. Because this double parsha that we read this morning has one of my favorite lines from all of Torah. It's a pasuk, it's a verse of Torah that we teach to our children early on when they're learning tefillot. And it's so beautiful and so meaningful that Chazal, that our rabbis of blessed memory, encouraged every Jew to sing it aloud when they walked into a synagogue. Ma tovu oalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Israel. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate that. How lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, people of Israel. Now, our rabbis asked us to sing this when we enter a shul, because they saw this verse as a metaphor for the tents that we build, for the tents that we have built throughout our history to come and pray together, our synagogues, our places of worship, our Yaakov's lovely tents. That's what they are. But I think there's another read here. So let me remind you what's happened in the story up to this point. Balak, the Moabite king, sees the encroaching Israelite camp and hires Bilam of Baal Peor, a renowned prophet, to curse the Israelites. And in ancient Near East, in that time and in that place and in the culture, a curse was serious. It was significant and made them, whatever army, whatever people it might be, it made them weak and easily conquerable when the inevitable battle between Israel and Moab was to take place. But when Bilam heads out to curse the Israelites, his donkey starts swerving all over the road, ultimately running into a wall and crushing Bilam's leg, and then starts talking to him and chastising him for being such a lousy master. It's very similar to the movie Shrek. But the story came first by a few thousand years. Anyway, as Bilam starts to just go off on his donkey, an angel appears before him, draws a sword, and tells the prophet Bilam, "You must not curse this people, for they are blessed. Go, climb on the overlook and do what you must, but you will not be able to curse this people." And so Bilam climbs up on top of the overlook and peers out over the expanse of the Israelite camp. And when he opens his mouth to curse the people, what comes out instead is a bracha, is a blessing. Ma tovu oalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Israel. How lovely are your tents, Yaakov, your dwelling places, people of Israel. Bilam looks out and sees these Jews in their vastness all of their different tents, and he blesses them. We talk a lot about big tent Judaism. This idea that we open up our walls, our doors, our barricades, and that we include everyone, asking them to forget their labels, their denomination, their X, their Y, so that we can all be bunched together under the safe canopy, under the safe tent that we call Yiddishkeit, Judaism. But I'm wondering if this parasha presents us with an argument against that philosophy. That maybe rather than symbolizing our synagogues, these ohelot, these tents of Yaakov that Bilam blesses, represent those very labels, those very cultural, historical X and Y identifiers that we seem to so badly want to leave outside of our tents. Because Bilam doesn't say, and this is important, Bilam doesn't say, how lovely is it that you are monolithic? How lovely is it that you have one tent and that you are all the same? How lovely is your conformity, people of Israel? Bilam's blessing is notably and critically plural. Look at all your incredible tents. Hundreds and thousands of tents, all containing their own families, their own backgrounds, their own stories and foods and traditions and ways of seeing the world. Look at your dwelling places and how norm-shattering it is that all of you, despite your differences, travel together for the same purpose, for the same objective, to reach holiness, to find and create a world flowing with milk and honey. That changes everything. That changes everything about how we read this parasha. And I think it's supposed to. Because I think that our Torah, I think that our tradition treasures above all our willingness to wrestle with it, to break our teeth on difficult passages, to push and to pull and to twist and to turn it so that it never becomes static fundamentalism, but that it grows and breathes and evolves with the world and helps evolve that world that is constantly changing. And what is inconsistent with that mission, with that message, is two things, at least two things. The first is the idea that if your Judaism doesn't look like mine, I get to say you're not Jewish. That is incompatible with that message. That is antithetical to our tradition. And secondly, and equally consequential, it means that the idea of big tent Judaism might just miss the point of our actual unity, which is not about shedding labels and aspects of our identity, but rather embracing our differences and celebrating Judaism in its vast pluralism, even when that Judaism seems foreign or uncomfortable or even incompatible with our own. It means looking out and saying, Ma tovu. How lovely is our capital C conservative Judaism, our Reformed Judaism, our renewal, our Hasidus, our mysticism, our rationalism, our science, our transcendence. How beautiful is our orthodoxy, our orthopraxy, our secularism, our culturalism, our Ashkenazim, our Sephardim, our Mizrahim, our Ethiopians and Moroccans, our queer Judaism, our liberation Judaism, our Peshat, and our Drash. How lovely are we in our multitudes, not because of our big tent, but dafka because of our countless little ones. How lovely are our tents. This is the remix. It's something I want to challenge us to think about this morning, because while we all gather together in this conservative sanctuary, the reality is that in this room there are over 100 different Judaisms taking place. Celebrating Ufrafs, anniversaries, benching Gomel, birthdays, embracing the peace of Shabbat. 100 different tents at least, but all traveling together with a common purpose, a common mission, to find a world, to build a world, to create a world flowing with milk and honey. Shabbat shalom, everyone.